Hello, I'm Llewellyn King, the host of White House Chronicle, which comes to you today from Chicago, Illinois. Why? Because the Edison Electric Institute is holding its annual convention here, and we at White House Chronicle believe electricity is so important a part of life. The cost of it, the reliability of it, the availability of it, that every year we come to this meeting, it's in different parts of the country, to give you an update on electricity, what it's going to cost you, and what the future holds. Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of this great city, says it is a city with broad shoulders. It also likes to think of itself as a city that has very special relationship with electricity, because it was here in 1942 that the first nuclear chain reaction took place, and it has been at the forefront of innovations of big and small ever since then. Chicago is a city that you have to love because it is a city absolute. You don't have any doubt when you're in Chicago that you are in a city. It is not influenced by Los Angeles or New York or any overhanging metropolis. It is its own place, certain, assured, powerful, and enormously exciting. I have been watching little boats run up and down the Chicago River with not hundreds but thousands of tourists looking at the sights. And the architecture is a treat too. It is a very important American city, as electricity is so important to you and I every day in our everyday lives. Phil Moeller is Senior Vice President at the Edison Electric Institute, but you have a great pedigree in the electric industry, having worked for a bunch of electric companies on Capitol Hill, and then 9.5 years at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Is there anything in this industry you don't know or understand?
Well, there are plenty of things I don't know and understand because it's such an exciting time and things are evolving and transitioning so quickly.
Explain the excitement. What is happening?
Well, we're seeing with technology, particularly at the distribution level, that customers have more options now. We want to make sure that they get those options. And
do they know they have more options?
They're increasingly knowing that. Part of it's related to smart meters and the fact that we have 65 million of those in, but still half the meters in the country are not smart. But that's allowed, obviously, things to go two-way when they used to be one-way in the past. That's an exciting change.
When we had deregulation, people thought they were going to, be able to shop for electricity, 5 or 6. It didn't really work, did it?
No, well, it didn't really work in most places because of where it started from, and it was kind of a high-cost time to be going into that in some cases. At the wholesale level, I think most would say the competitive forces have been extremely beneficial to the economy, but
isn't that a distorting force? Hasn't that caused very clean nuclear power plants to go out of business so that less clean gas plants can come into the business?
Well, it's having that effect. There are a lot of other reasons for the prices being down as well, including some price suppressive tax policies. But you're right, essentially, the markets weren't designed to value diversity and value reliability through a baseload product.
Or longevity.
Or longevity, yes.
Isn't this a sort of American capitalist problem where we look for short-term returns quarterly for public companies, and most of the electricity, the large utilities are all public companies, and yet we, as a social value, we don't build a bridge that's going to fall down in 4 months. We build a power plant, a nuclear plant, for example, that could last for maybe 80 years. Isn't this a rather dichotomous situation?
It is. We have to find a way to assign some value to those plants that are necessary, again, both for diversity purposes, but also reliability to be there as plants that grid can count on and to keep it running.
Possibly economically, because you can't predict the cost of a fuel like gas.
That's true.
Over the life of more than maybe 2 years, 5 years.
Well, again, if we go back to the plants that are at risk, there's a different situation in each particular plant, There are some state solutions that might be helpful. There's talk in Illinois and New York about that. There's some federal wholesale price changes that could more accurately reflect the value of these plants when they're there. A variety of different approaches. I think it's important that the federal agencies, the utilities, the state regulatory commissions, the Department of Energy, that we're talking together to make sure that we can move these issues forward, save this carbon-free part of the fleet with those nuclear plants that are at risk.
You've talked a lot at this conference, very excitingly, about the impact of technology.
Yes.
I mean, there are drones flying here.
Right.
There were robots running around the place doing interesting things and indicating that even more interesting things can happen. The drones clearly are going to help in the cost of inspecting lines, of keeping them healthy,
yes,
etc. What are the other innovations that are in the pipe or at hand?
Well, a lot of it goes back to what customers want in terms of, say, different products of power delivery. We're seeing a lot of large commercial customers wanting to meet their corporate sustainability goals, so we're getting creative in finding ways to get green tariffs for them. Sometimes it's something like a microgrid that they may want to have, either commercially or perhaps at a military base. Those are the kind of new products that really we weren't talking about even a few years ago, but are now being developed and taken advantage of. There's a lot of room to grow. Electric vehicles is another area where there's huge potential and pent-up consumer demand as well.
I was going to say, what about technologies that can be implemented that the homeowner can see the impact of? It's very hard for the homeowner paying a bill every month to understand these big changes taking place,
yes,
in the market, in the technology.
Some of it is generational, but there's new technology that again can allow you, whether it's a mobile platform that you want on your phone, to frankly better manage your home's electricity consumption. Maybe not be for everybody, but growing, I think increasingly, again, a younger generation, maybe even a retired generation, will enjoy this new technology as a way to, again, make their choices as to how they want to consume energy.
Thank you so much.
My
for being
pleasure.
On the broadcast. Welcome to the broadcast, Julia Hamm, who is the President and Chief Operating Officer of Smart Electric Power Alliance. This is a new name for an old organization. What I know about your organization was that it basically represented the large number of utilities that are putting in solar power as a utility power source, not on roofs, but in solar parks, maybe on roofs, but their own roofs, that kind of thing. But you've changed somewhat. What are you doing now?
Yeah, well, so actually, so we've been around for 25 years. We were created in 1992 to help utilities with everything they needed related to solar. So while large-scale solar as a utility asset is an important part of that conversation, we actually also, for 25 years, have been very involved with utilities, helping with the customer side of solar as well. So that, the utility has a key role to play as customers go solar. So we have been involved in helping utilities with programs that give solar as an option to their customers, helping them improve interconnection processes. But you're right, we are in a very significant point of transition for our organization. It's really an evolution. So we have changed the name to the Smart Electric Power Alliance. We continue to work with utilities and the larger stakeholder community, but now around a more holistic perspective of technologies. So within our scope, we now include solar, storage, demand response, electric vehicle charging networks, and all of the other technologies that we need to enable the evolution that's happening in the industry.
Julia, bring it down to people watching this program or listening to it on Sirius XM radio. What do they get out of your endeavors? What is the real consumer input and the real consumer impact? We tend to talk up here in large, because utilities are large companies, they tend to talk in large ways. What is that? How is it going to affect somebody living in an apartment in Philadelphia?
Ultimately, it's about making sure that there are more choices for whether it's a residential, whether you're a homeowner, a business owner, and ensuring that you have options in terms of your electricity. So whether you want a larger portion of your electricity to come from solar, or you're looking to lower your bill, and so you're looking to find out what are the combination of resources that could be available to me to get the lowest bill possible, or if you're an executive at a large manufacturing facility and you need to ensure that you have the highest degree of reliability so that there is never a split-second blip in your electricity, which could have significant financial impacts on your manufacturing operation, really ensuring that all of those resources are put to good use to ensure that you as a customer are getting what you want.
A lot of the public thinks of solar as being on individual houses, because that's got a lot of attention.
Yes.
And you can see it. I mean, if you drive down the streets, or you look as I do out of the train in New England, I see solar on a lot of roofs, especially on new construction. But that's not where most of the solar is it? Most of the solar is in the utility backyard, so to speak.
Yes, it really is a combination. So there are multiple different parts of the solar industry, the solar marketplace, and much of it is large-scale solar farms. But the rooftop market is continuing to grow as well. Actually, one of the most interesting market spots is actually sort of in the middle of those two, where we're seeing significant growth in not rooftop systems, but community-based solar systems that aren't necessarily as large as a huge solar farm out that you might find out in the desert, but something that's still relatively large, ground-mounted, somewhere within the community or near the community.
How big is relatively large?
10 to 20 megawatts, 5 to 20 megawatts is, sort of an average size community-based system. And we're seeing programs being developed where individual customers can subscribe.
Let's try to give the viewers some idea of size here. Most of the windmills you see nowadays are 2.5 megawatts. The original ones were about 1.5 megawatts. That's quite a lot of power. A very big power plant, coal or nuclear, is north of 900 megawatts into the 1,000 to 1,600 or something.
Right.
Just to give people an idea. But that's quite a lot of power for these solar systems. Who owns them in the community? Who owns a community system?
There's no one model. There are many models. In many cases, it is the utility, and the utility may own it and offer customers the ability to subscribe into that system. In other cases, it's third-party private developers who are developing them and then getting customers to subscribe as participants. So really different models in different states. Much of it is very policy-driven to determine whether the utility owns the system or whether it's a third-party developer.
Julio, I find that the public wants solar because they think it's benign. It has no cost in terms of the environment, which it does and it doesn't. You have to manufacture the cells somewhere, and that's fairly messy. But people want solar. How, in the future, will they be able to buy solar? I have no idea. I do, because I sort of know a lot about this. But mostly I have no idea. Most people have no idea where their electricity came from. How is that going to work in the future? Am I going to be able to call up the utility and say, send me over next month and I want solar, or I want wind, or I want either?
Yeah, well, that's one of the big debates, honestly, happening in the electricity sector is who should be offering these solar products to customers. Right now, most customers who go solar are doing so through third-party private companies who are coming to them and offering them the service.
Like Sun City, etc.
Like Solar City and Sunrun, Sungevity are companies, some of the big players
Right.
Vivint. And there is a lot of hesitancy by many stakeholders to allow utilities to get into this game and offer solar to their customers because of the concerns that utilities in most cases are regulated and they have a monopoly function, and there's concerns that they may crowd out the third-party competitive players. But from my perspective, if we truly want to see solar accessible to everyone, utilities are very logical players to have a role in this. Utilities are already sending a bill to customers every month. They have that relationship. So utilities should be able to partner with third-party solar providers and offer solar to customers either on their own roof or as part of a community system because rooftop solar is not an option for many customers who live in apartments or who rent their home, or if their roof is shaded, solar may not be an option for them. So what we're really looking to see is new program models and types that really make solar an option for all customers.
Julia, you are wise and interesting. Thank you for coming on the broadcast.
Thank you so much,
and
Llewellyn.
good luck with your brave new world.
Thank you.
Cheers. We pause now for station identification, primarily for the benefit of our listeners on Sirius XM Radio, where this program can be heard 4 times every weekend. Channel 124, the POTUS channel, Politics of the United States for People of the United States. It also can be seen on 200 American television stations and around the globe on the English language services of the Voice of America. I'm joined now by Tom Fanning, the chairman of the Southern Company. And for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, the Southern Company is the giant utility organization in the South. It has 5 operating companies and many other subsidiary companies. But what you don't know about it is that it's enormously innovative. At a time when there's been a lot of sort of steady inertia in this industry, it has leapt ahead in the South. Tom, you are involved in carbon capture and storage, nuclear.
One of the biggest investors in solar.
Coal.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at extending the whole traditional business model of the electric utility industry in thinking about how traditionally we were make, move, sell before a meter, making, moving, and selling electricity. Now beyond the meter, make, move, sell, enabled by technology, enabled by customer requirements. And so the whole vision of what has traditionally been a long-standing model is, I guess to some people, under attack. But Llewellyn, it is our obligation as leaders of the enterprise to play offense everywhere we can, to invent our future. We are acting, we are not acted upon. And that's the posture we're trying to take with Southern Company.
And you, Tom, you are the chairman of the Edison Electric Institute.
Yes, I am.
And that's marvelous. Are you bringing these ideas to bear on the whole industry?
Well, I think the whole industry is completely ripe for these kinds of ideas. You know, so often in times of change, people feel under attack. Here's the deal. Llewellyn, for all the challenges that the world faces, whether it's economic malaise in Europe, whether it's event risk in the Middle East or in Russia, a lack of transparency in China, good heavens, we know we got our own problems here domestically, and this election season, doesn't that kind of underline some of the challenges we face? When I think about what this industry can do in terms of energy policy, is create for Americans not electrons, not energy, but hope. We give people, I think, the cards to play where they can play offense in otherwise this challenged environment. And doing it right and well, we can grow the economy, grow jobs, grow personal incomes, make American lives better. It is a tremendous time for opportunity, enveloped in a tremendous time of tumultuous change. But that's what makes it fun.
You also are looking at vertical farms in cities. Explain vertical farms.
So I'm so proud of this. So before I became chairman, Southern produced about 70% of our electricity from coal. Today it's about 28%. Before I became chairman, we were 16% gas. Now we're about 50.
How long have you been chairman?
I'm in my 6th year now. So here's what's interesting. In the past, Southern remains the only company in our industry that has proprietary, robust research and development. In the past, it was kind of oriented towards defending coal. Good work in terms of environmental, technologies and things like that. What I've asked our folks to do is reorient those efforts, and we are coming up with the most amazing solutions to improve customers' lives. One of the issues is the so-called urban desert problem. That is, in big cities, you find a lacking of grocery stores, of access to fresh produce, and a variety of other issues. That's because supply chains are so long, spoilage rates are high, and ultimately what ends up in these urban areas are more expensive. Here's the idea that our guys have stumbled on and working now in partnership with a variety of other people. Think about vacant commercial buildings. What we're able to do now, working with these folks, is to create farms that are in fact vertical. And what we're able to do is create the most efficient lighting to promote the optimal growth profiles. You're actually taking Mother Nature out of the equation. From a water use standpoint, we're something like 90% more efficient on water use within the building. Oh, and by the way, because it's in a contained environment, you don't need pesticides. And all of a sudden, those long supply chains, spoilage, increased costs are now being eradicated. And what we can do if we're successful with this idea is improve the lots of people through the use of electricity and smart technology that otherwise has been unattainable. These are the kinds of technology innovations that are going to drive, I think, growth in the future.
And marvelous new job opportunities.
Of course.
Where you want them, in
Yeah.
the city, in the inner city.
See, that's what's so fascinating to me, too, is people feel threatened, I think, sometimes by change and technology and different government requirements. We can play offense here and actually invent the future. We will not fight the waves that ultimately will reach the beach. We will play offense everywhere we can, and we can really create, I think, a better life for so many people.
When are we going to see the first urban farm?
I don't know. We're working on it right now. We'll see.
Do you have any idea how tall it will be? Will it be a
Depends on the building. Look, you can be very flexible here.
We have some, I live in New England now, and we have some wonderful old mills just waiting to be turned into farms.
Well, and that's right. And you got to
Because
think.
you have huge space, and you don't have to do as much heating and cooling with the farm. You some, but not as much.
So, Llewellyn, here's the other idea. So let's just say a vertical farm is another innovation. But the whole notion of extending the business model, make, move, sell to a meter, and then make, move, sell on the customer premise. Whether that is distributed generation in the form of rooftop solar, which is where everybody goes, but it could be fuel cells, it could be storage devices, it could be smart HVAC. What about the idea of a Nest thermostat, where Nest has been this adaptive thermostat technology? Let's take that same technology and make it an adaptive server that connects the Internet of Things. And let's create systems and technology that harmonizes, I think, the next quantum leap in energy efficiency.
How are you doing with these innovative things? You're building 2 nuclear plants, you may build more, which the nuclear industry is so grateful for at a time when they're losing plants.
And I think it's going to be one of the greatest successes in mega projects in modern American history.
You have carbon capture and storage.
Exporting that to the world, to Eastern Europe, Romania, Serbia, Poland, South Korea, China.
And you have clean combustion of coal.
Yep.
Is that working?
Yes. Well, we're right in that's all part of this carbon capture work we're doing. We also do, as you point out, we do all of the carbon capture science for the United States Department of Energy. So the United States Clean Capture Research Center, Carbon Capture Research Center is in Wilsonville, Alabama. Interestingly, this year we picked up the international mandate. So the international test results for at least the next 2 years will be done out of our service territory as well.
The things that people are concerned about, cybersecurity, which you've done a lot of work on. What is going to happen if the lights go out?
Yeah.
How soon can they come back on?
You bet.
How secure are you against terrorism?
You bet.
That is not cyber.
That's
we
right.
had the attacks on the transformers in California, for example.
Yeah.
How much of your effort goes into security?
A great deal. I'm a former CIO now. Well, in many days I thought CIO stood for career is over, but in fact I was a chief information officer and migrated up now to become chairman of Southern. I lead for the electric utility industry. That's investor-owns, co-ops, and munis. All things cyber and physical terrorism, and basically report through the Department of Homeland Security through a group called the ESCC, Electricity Subsector Coordinating Council. Interestingly, even that is evolving. The United States recognizes that 87% of the critical infrastructure in America is owned by private industry. It's not owned by the government. And so we have to understand now more than ever, this is the perfect place for a public-private partnership to assure that the critical infrastructure of America is accounted for. And we can't view ourselves as an island, even though I would argue electricity is one of the most fundamental of the critical infrastructures. So is finance, so is telecom.
And you are on the Federal Reserve Board, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. And so what we're doing now is connecting other CEOs to form an integrated unit of accountability to the government so that we have the best way to prepare for and ultimately respond to any attacks. And I can guarantee you, Llewellyn, this is a relentless effort. Now, I know a lot of people out there in the media, books, variety of things, want to scare people. And in fact, there was a book written recently that was really kind of in two pieces. One piece said there's no plan, and the other piece said of the book, well, because there's no plan, you better buy a bunch of MREs. Dead wrong. There is a plan. It doesn't behoove us to reveal to the bad guys all of our plans. The other thing you should know is that the plans continually change. This is a threat that has no shape. It continually evolves. It's almost like a bacteria. And so we, as well, must always, in the words of Wayne Gretzky, skate to where the puck will be. We've always got to figure out a way to get ahead of the threat and continue to build bridges and harmonize responses so that we're best prepared for the public's benefit.
To conclude, electric transportation, is it at hand? And have you solved the charging problem?
Well, and we haven't even scratched the surface, because you know what's coming are driverless vehicles. Those driverless vehicles almost surely will be done by electricity. And so I think there's a tremendous growth curve here on either electric vehicles or even CNG, natural gas fired.
Are you working on ways of making charging easier? Wireless,
Yes, yeah.
wireless charging,
Hasn't
induction charging.
Well, I don't know about wireless and induction, and that certainly is an option, and we're looking at that in our R&D thing. But let's just stick with the tried and true. We need to think about the infrastructure, because one of the problems facing electric transportation has been the chicken or the egg. You know, I'm not going to buy an electric vehicle if I don't have the charging infrastructure. I'm not going to deploy charging infrastructure if I don't have enough cars to use it. What we've got to do is work collaboratively with our regulators to enable us to start deploying infrastructure and use it. One of the great successes we've had is with the Department of Defense. And we're using that as a beachhead to really grow this idea of fully distributed infrastructure. One segment of that will be charging infrastructure for electric transportation. We can do this, and I think we're about it. As we go through this digital economy, this whole technology revolution, electricity will be foundational to advancing that future.
I love it. I love interviewing you. Thank
Awesome.
you, Tom.
Fantastic. Good seeing you, as always.
Really good. That is our show for today. I hope that it's given you something to think about, and that as you watch the television or flash on the light or get a beer out of the refrigerator, you realize that it is all made possible by seamless electricity flowing through the mains. Have a great week and keep the lights on. Cheers.